Welcome to the Abundance Effect, where we empower ambitious women with practical tools to live their most rich and fulfilling life in business and beyond. I'm your host, Larisa McCoop. Let's get started. Let me ask you, have you ever had your trust broken? Maybe you realized it's not as easy to rebuild as people say. Whether it's in business, in relationships, or even with your own kids, trust is one of those things that we talk about lightly, but when it's tested, it reveals absolutely everything. Today's conversation is a really, really special one. We talk a lot about self-image on this podcast. We talk about identity and really how we show up in this world. But today we're bringing that to a whole new level. And one of the most important places that it plays out, our relationships. I'm joined by Rosalie Salamone, and she is the founder of Dedita Recruitment. She has spent over 2 decades building relationships. This is like what she does. She eats, sleeps, and breathes relationships, and she helps people navigate their careers in a really, really meaningful way. What I love about Rosalie is her approach to business is so deeply rooted in trust. And she doesn't just talk about it professionally, she lives it at home. I know this because I've spent a lot of time with Rosalie. She's been a part of our community for a couple of years. So I literally saw you every day for a 2-year period. You are the mom of 2 boys. Rosalie, she's super intentional about building strong, open, honest relationships with them and with everyone in her life. And so today we're talking about real life examples of some of our conversations and what that means. So Rosalie, I'm so excited that you're here.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we have a juicy story that I'm going to have you share. But before we get into the story all about trust, I want to zoom out for a second. You're a mom. You love working. You love what you do. You love your kids. You love your family. However, I think a lot of times we don't necessarily define ourselves as parents. What are some of the things that shaped how you decided to show up as a parent earlier in your life?
That's a great question. So if we're going back to when I became a parent, when I had Vince, my oldest, who's now going to be 16, I can't even believe that. I'm too young. So almost 16 years ago, when we had Vince, we almost lost him. And I think when you go through with your partner a traumatic event like that, everything shifts. When you're pregnant, you think all these things you're going to be when you're a parent and everything you're going to do. And you have this plan out and then you have a baby and already it's like you're going left when you wanted to go right. And it's like, okay, now everything is different. Decisions had to be made in order for him to stay alive. And I hadn't even really held my baby yet, let alone make decisions for his life. So everything as a parent for me shifted. And it was a great moment for me to realize that I really have no control as a parent on what's going to happen. All I can do was deal with the present moment with your kid, where they're at. And for me and my husband, it was newborn, NICU, every decision we had. And these were life-changing decisions we had to make. And then it was out of our hands. So trust also had to be there with doctors and nurses and the decisions that we made together in terms of we didn't know what was wrong. So I think ultimately me and my husband together decided how we wanted to parent our kids. And we realized that it's going to have to be in the moment where they're at, learning our kids who they are as a person and helping them evolve to who they will be. And that's kind of the premise in terms of our parenting and how we proceeded forward.
Yeah. And one of the things I used to love is your kids are a little older than mine. So you're a couple steps ahead of me with a lot of these parenting things. So you always seem to have really good tips and tricks and ideas. And you've put a lot of thought into your parenting. Now, when it comes to trust, you have a powerful story about your son breaking your trust and having to rebuild it. Can you give us the premise of what this is?
Yeah, for sure. It was a juicy and it was crazy how it came out when we were talking about it. But so my oldest has always been so honest with me. So I always had such trust in him. Like, he would completely rat himself out. Mom, I did this. And I'm like, okay, most wouldn't admit that. So at school, if, he pushed a kid, he would come home saying, oh, I pushed a little boy. Like, he would completely go up front with it and we would talk about it. So I initially had trust. I never felt like I needed to micromanage my son. Then COVID hit and everything was different. And everything was online. And I can't even imagine being in grade 5, which is 9 years old, and having to figure out now everything being online. You can't see your family, you can't see your friends. You're stuck with the same 4 people. We love each other, but it's not the massive house. We were really stuck with each other. Plus, he's having to navigate online schooling. As adults, we had a challenge with that. And as kids, they were. I didn't know online schooling then either. I was learning as we went. And we were very open with our kids. We're going to figure this out together because mom doesn't know what online school is. I've dropped you off, you go to school, and that's it. So we would ask every day, how was school? Good. Did you get everything in that you needed to? Yeah. Because there was a lot of doing the work on your own and submit it. And then a lot of you do it with the teacher in class. And so I was working. I had actually just started Dedita a few months before this pandemic had hit. And so I was building a business, working with a kindergartner on his work while having a grade 5 in his realm doing his thing. And my husband was out of the house doing work. He was an essential worker, so he was out of the house. So I was essentially alone doing this. So I walked by his computer one day and noticed he was on YouTube while school was going on. And I thought, what is happening? So it was the end of school. School wrapped up. I went to him and I said, how is school going? And he's like, good. I'm like, are you submitting everything that you're supposed to? And he said, yep, everything is submitted. And my oldest is your, straight A. School is always effortless for him. And so good grades, everything was like check, 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 check. But this was a different realm, right? You had a lot of temptation and you're young. And so I said, okay, we'll pull up everything that you needed. And you saw a ghost happen on his face and things were not completed. Almost nothing was completed. And I spoke to him. I'm like, when I ask you if things are done, I'm trusting that, you're telling me the truth, that you're completing this work and you're not. And so we worked through it. He had to learn how to self-teach himself because he wasn't paying attention in class. So we taught him the consequences to that are now you need to go online and self-teach yourself that lesson and now complete the work. And now I gave him deadlines to do so. He got it all done and he got it all done quickly. So I wasn't really, I was a bit confused as to why he would do this. But it made me learn that kids are going to test the boundaries and they're not always going to tell you when they do. So we had a long conversation about trust. And I said, before this, I really did trust that what you told me was true. But unfortunately, when you lie to someone, it's going to stay in the back of their head. So we're going to have to build this back and we're going to have to figure out how that's going to happen. And so I said, for a little while, you're going to say you did something and I'm going to need to check it. I'm going to need to see that it actually went through. And he asked me, how long is that going to be? And I said, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't have a timeline. I just know that when the trust is built back, you'll feel it. You'll feel it and it will be gradual and it'll be slowly. But, the same way if someone broke trust with you, you would question things. We're going to start questioning things until you've built back that trust.
As parents, we want to respond thoughtfully. But between work, responsibilities, and one more unexpected situation, sometimes we react before we catch ourselves. That's why Larisa created 5-Minute Miracles. In this free masterclass, she'll show you simple resets to calm your nervous system, clear your mind, and regain control of your energy in 5 minutes or less. Because you don't need hours to change the direction of your day. Sometimes you just need the right 5 minutes. 2 sessions remain. Check the show notes below to save your seat today.
And that's got to be hard. I think it's so much easier as a parent just to say, okay, well, let's just do something 3 times or check these boxes off, but you didn't, because that would not be truthful to you. And I think the bigger lesson, like, great, he got his homework done. Awesome. He got that checkbox. He knows how to do it. That's not the concern, but the concern is the lying and the breaking of trust. And why did you choose to make him work for it? And what was the process of him earning it back?
So for us, a lot of it is eventually he will be an adult, and eventually he will have to do adult things. And in the adult world, when you don't do the pre-work, you may have to play a bit of catch up. So if he's in university, doesn't go to a class, he's going to have to self-teach himself. And our kids are in this great era, especially now with AI even. But at that time, that wasn't as big. It was YouTube. You could learn and self-teach. And I wanted him not to think, oh, mom and dad will bail me out. I wanted him to realize, now I've got to put in the extra work because I didn't do it then. And he has to realize the consequences on him. The onus is on him. We're there to support him, to say, here are the tools that you can use, but you're going to have to figure this out. You have to succeed or fail on your own. And we're here to support you and help you find the tools, but we're a support. We're not doing it for you. And I think that goes back to even how we were raised. Our parents we had expectations of how we needed to complete it. We had to figure it out, and sometimes we went to our parents and asked them questions and they told us where to go. My mom's classic statement was, go check the encyclopedias, because that's what we had back then. and so anytime we asked her a question, she's like, good question. She'd pull out a dictionary, or she'd pull out the encyclopedia, or it was always do the research, learn how to find out yourself. Don't rely on other people telling you. And so we naturally want to do that with our own kids.
Yeah. And what was the hardest part for you holding that boundary?
Oh, I think as parents, at least I can only speak to me and my husband, but you just want to do it for them because you want to see them succeed, right? So I have to hold myself back quite a few times. I'll start and I'll say, what do you think? Like, what do you think? And they may get it wrong. And I'll say, well, you got to double check that. And part of me wants to say nope, or yep, that's right, that's wrong. A lot of it is, again, going back to, we're trying to make sure that they're growing into the best version of them as we grew up to the best version of ourselves. I don't need them to be me. My husband doesn't need them to be him, but we do want to make sure that whatever they do, they put their best effort in and they're being the best version of themselves, not anybody else. And so I feel like if we try and control the outcome or try and control their response, we're teaching them that other people will dictate what they say, who they are. And so we want to ingrain that in them in our home to say, I'll say no to something. And I've always told my son, if you don't agree, what's your argument? What's your supporting statement? Like, you can bring it to the table and I may say, no, you know what? I'm holding strong and this is my reason. I'll give him my reasoning because I feel like I need to make sure he continues to trust me too. If I just say no and walk away, that's not going to build trust with him. And especially as they get older, there's more disconnect because they're more free. They get a job, they go to university. I always want to make sure that if they come to me with a question or a request, it is a conversation.
Mm-hmm. And were there moments where you questioned yourself and whether you were on the right track?
Yeah, 100%. I think as a parent, you're always questioning, am I doing it right? Am I, being the perfect parent? And I think it's out there. Everyone has a comment about how you parent and what you say. And I mean, we've worked together, and the reasoning is because I wanted to be the best version of myself. And so I've learned that, I don't need to be what other parents are. And so I know my kids, I'm with them every single day. I'm raising them and I have the best intentions. And so does my husband. And so at the end of the day, am I doing things wrong? For sure. But I am classic in telling my kids that I'm figuring it out with them. I've told Vince, I got nothing else but you as my benchmark. And then I look at Joe and I'm like, and you're also a different benchmark because you're a different person, right? You don't have the same wants and drive and aspirations in life. And so you're just a different benchmark now because I've tried what I do with Vince, I'm going to do with Joe. And that did not work.
It's amazing. We're all unique individuals. Like,
right.
So
it was very eye-opening when I had Vince. I was like, oh, this parenting thing's easy. And then I had Joe and I was like, I'm doing the same stuff. Why isn't this working? And so you get humbled really quick. But I think the most rewarding part about parenting is that you don't have to have it figured out. And I don't think your kids are expecting you to have it all figured out. At least mine don't. But they do, and I do, expect for myself to bring forward my best self every day and admit when I haven't and figure out and reflect a way to do better the next time. Just evolve.
And so how did things shift for your son over time? I think you said this happened in 5th grade. It was in 8th grade. I don't know if you told me that before or here, but it was 8th grade when you finally regained his trust. What was the shift in him during that time and even moving forward?
So he was really intentional with making sure he would tell me. Like, I think by 8th grade, when I questioned him at one point, he's like, trust me, Mom, I learned my lesson. Like, you take a long time to build back trust fully. Again, I didn't have a timeline. I did trust him. Like, I gave him more and more leeway as things went and it was because I didn't have you've got 1 week to build back my trust. I don't think that that's fair either. And we were going through COVID. Like we were still in isolation. We were still figuring things out. And so a lot of times when I don't have all the answers, I knew I didn't have the trust. I knew that it was going to come back because he seemed so determined to make sure. We'll figure it out together on when it does. But I have a feeling you'll know because I know myself. You'll hear it in, Mom, can I do this? And there won't be questions. It'll say, yes, you can go do it. And I would say by grade 8, I mean, he heard no's sometimes for things and he would say, oh, is it because you don't trust me? And I was like, well, no, like you're 13. Like you're not 23. There's still things you can and can't do. And it's not a trust thing. But it is you will evolve. And I would say by grade 9, I had a conversation with him and I said, not that now is when you've built back all of the trust, like you built it back well before. I'm extremely proud of, the honesty that you bring forward every single day for sure. But grade 9 hit and I was like, okay, like you've, it's all you. I'm not monitoring the work you get in. Report cards will be where, I see it. And I did it in grade 8 and grade 7 as well, because I knew in grade 9, parents are kind of pulled back a little bit from the day to day. So he would say, you're not asking me about assignments anymore. And I was like, well, grade 9 and 10, I'm not even going to know if you have an assignment or a test. I got to trust that you're telling me the truth. And I said, so if we're being honest here, report card is when I will know. And I was like, so you've got 2 times, sometimes 3 times, depends on if your progress report as well too. I said, where we'll be checking in. I said, so you have to do the work in between. You've got to decide on a day-to-day basis where you're at. If I keep monitoring you and on you, then I haven't built back that trust, right? So I said, as long as I'm not on you, then you're building it back. You'll know.
What do you think that most parents misunderstand about trust with their kids?
That's a great question. I don't really hyper focus on other people's parenting skills with their kids. I tend to say I'm going to focus on my kids and how I raise them. But sometimes a misconception can be that you need to be the friend so that they tell you absolutely everything. And I can say that we're very intentional to say we are quite casual with our kids. Like we have easy conversations with them. It's not like I'm the parent, you're the kid, do this. But we do have a role and are cautious of they don't have another mom and they don't have another dad. So we do very much still hold that for them because I don't want them to feel like they're missing that. They have friends. They don't need yet another friend, and especially another friend that's like over 20 years older than them, who lived in an entirely different generation. But in terms of a comfort level where they could come to me But when they come to me, they're coming to me because it's the tough things they need answered, not because they want someone to hang with kind of situation, which they do hang out with us. But I need to know that when things are going to get tough, they can come to me. So it's about, I think, a role maybe than anything else, for me at least.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. I think it's so easy because we want approval from our kids. We want that love from our kids, but we aren't their friends. We do have to assume that parental role, and that sometimes means doing the hard thing, not the easy thing. That sometimes means, like you said, saying no, not because you don't have trust in them, just because you're choosing to. You don't even have to have a reason, right? As a parent, you don't need to justify every single thing you do. And sometimes when they're on par in that friend zone, they expect that, but they don't necessarily need to have that. So you have built your career on relationships and trust. How do you see these principles showing up in business?
I grew up a lot with, you have to trust people that you are in business with, or you work with, or that you have any form of a relationship with. And my parents always said, if you want to be successful, people need to trust you. And this could be successful in friendships. This could be successful in business. And so when I'm working with someone, I need to know that when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. My word is something you can trust. So if I say that it's going to take me a little bit of time, they can trust that it's going to take a little bit of time. But I also put that in front of people that work with me. And I set those expectations to say, when we work together, just know that what we say needs to happen. If it's a candidate, for example, when we're working together, I usually say, at this point, if you choose to proceed forward to the next stage, another interview with the manager, and then you decide not to proceed forward, that's not breaking my trust, because we're still in the discovery stage. We're still trying to see if this is a good fit. And then knowing that, if you do accept the position, now it's a trust. Now you say, I accept, and I'm proceeding forward. For me, transparency is the biggest thing. When I work with someone, when I have a relationship with someone, I'll lay out all the cards on the table. And if you don't like it, I'm totally fine if you need to walk away with it. But I don't want any assumptions, because I think assumptions are when things go wrong. So for me, transparency and trust are two very intertwining things.
Yeah. And what happens when trust is broken professionally?
I don't know if it's built back on the professional side as much as with my kids. And I can respect that if I were to break someone's trust, I may never get that back. On the professional side, to be honest, if someone has broken my trust, I haven't gone back. Because I believe that people, they show you who they are, they don't tell you who they are. So when they break the trust, and it doesn't mean like, we missed a deadline, and you call them and you say, I'm so sorry, I missed this. Like, to me, that's still building trust. But when you blatantly lie, for me, I can't go back on that, because at times in some of the business that I do, that's my reputation too. And so if I'm holding a certain standard for myself in my delivery of my work, my expectation is the people that I work with deliver that same form of standard as well too. And that's just a standard that I have when I was an employee, as well as when I'm a business owner now.
Yeah, beautiful. When we met by LinkedIn, just a random connection. You live, eat, sleep, breathe on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, right? You're on LinkedIn. And I remember we had a chat, and it was just a great chat. It was just, we just had really good conversations. And I think it was super organic. At first, it didn't lead to anything specific. And then eventually things moved forward somehow. I don't remember how, but I do think we took the time to get to know one another, build trust with each other. We didn't know what we wanted or needed or anything from each other, but we loved the energy, and we took that time to cultivate it. So one of the things I definitely know you do is you consistently build relationships, whether they're directly leading to something or not, because there's always a different outcome. I do the same thing. I think it's so important. You can only DM so many random weird things before you actually need to work with a human, and AI can only take you so far. So, So can you tell us about your approach to connecting with people and the initial phases of building that trust process?
Yeah, I believe in treating people like humans. And so in order to build a relationship, you can't have an ask right off the bat, because I know when people ask me things right off the bat, my defenses go up. It's a one-sided, you just want something from me, I'm out. And so when we met, I'll use us as an example. It was random. And I do, when I have time, meet with people that I love their energy when they come into my DMs, and it feels very organic, and it was with you. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to have this conversation. We talked about just life and everything. And then at the very end, you're like, I should probably explain what I do. And I was like, oh yeah, please tell me. And so you did. And it wasn't where I was at the moment. And you respected that. And I think we both knew that eventually I was going to need to get there, and I didn't feel that pressure. It was very much a relationship. It wasn't like a, hey, want to touch base? Where are you at? It wasn't any of that, because that's still very salesy to me, and you're not building a relationship with that. So for me, it's about getting to know the person. Whether I'm interviewing a person or getting to know a client, everything is about getting to know people. So when I have a call with people, they're going to ask me questions, and I answer them so that I realize this is not a sales pitch. This is a person speaking to another person, answering their inquiries, making sure they have all of the information. And I think when you respect the fact that people need information, they need time to process that information, and then or maybe a reconnection at that point, that's a relationship. That's building. What can I do for you? Right? And not necessarily what can you do for me? It's a give and take, right? And anytime I work with anyone or get to know someone, I have to build a relationship with them. It's just in my nature. I have to have that somewhat of a connection in order to work with someone, because sometimes I do share information and I need to know that I can trust that person. And that only comes with a relationship.
Back to trust.
There's
a reason we're having this discussion on this topic. So we briefly touched on what you do. Can you tell listeners what you do, who you work with? Maybe they're not your people, but maybe they know people that are your people. If you guys get good vibes, but just so people don't go, oh, we met this Rosalie person and she's awesome, but I have no idea what she does. Give us a lowdown.
No problem. So I founded Dedita Recruitment Consulting back in October of 2019. I have about 20 years of recruiting experience in general, whether it's been in the agency world or in the corporate world. Both very different type of recruitment, but a full cycle, I would say, in terms of my experience and knowledge. I took a stint where I also took a job on a construction site, very much outside of my realm, but also helped build the team while I was there. And it was a great experience. And so what I do is two parts. One, I help organizations as a contractor to fill roles within their organization, find that right fit. I believe in urgency, but I don't believe in rushing, because I'm looking for that long-term fit for the organization where a candidate can grow. So I work very much in a corporate capacity on a contractor side, and I primarily focus on the construction industry. I have niched in that. And then I do career coaching for candidates. I've been in this realm. I'm on the other table still interviewing people. And so I help candidates to take control back in their life, learn how to do the job search, and help them to find their next role or get prepared to interview for their next positions.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And you've got resources. So check out Rosalie's LinkedIn account, because she's, like I said, she's always on there. You have some really great content that you post. You have a great community of people and connections that you've cultivated. If someone is interested in working with you, learning more about you, connecting with you, where can they find you and what should they do?
I live in my DMs on LinkedIn. Sometimes I forget that that's not my email address. It's where I live. Candidates will message me, and that's where they get my response, because my LinkedIn is always open, whether it's on my phone or it's on my computer, because that's normally where candidates are going when they think I need a job or I need to network with someone. And so I've kept it very clean, very consistent with the platform that they're on, rather than say, well, I'm here, but to contact me, come here. So LinkedIn DMs are probably the best place to find me.
Okay. And we'll make sure to include your profile. Go ahead, follow Rosalie, connect with her if you are interested. And do you have any other words of wisdom or anything you'd like to leave people with based on our conversation here today?
I think, the biggest thing is as parents, we'll go back to the parents thing. We're all learning as we go. And again, as my kids are getting older, I just realize that I'm having fun with it now. I'm having fun with it because I take the pressure off of having to have it all figured out. And I try different strategies and different processes every single time. I love my checklists, and I think I've incorporated it with the kids. And now my kids create checklists when we have to go somewhere. They're like, Mom, I got a checklist. And I'm like, all right, make sure everything's on there and you do it. And so I think, giving yourself grace and space to be able to figure it out as you're going, and knowing that if it doesn't come right, like your child breaks trust, it doesn't mean that you failed or they failed. It just means strategies need to change. And what are those strategies need to be in order to support your kids and where you can support your kids?
Beautiful, beautiful. And last teeny tiny question, because this is the abundance effect. What does abundance mean to you?
That is a great question, because I know that when we worked together, we talked a lot about abundance. And for me, it's about love more so. For me, it's being okay with where I am, what I'm doing, who I am. And it's not about how much money I make or how many people are in my life. So I would say it's about the quality of what's happening in my life, who is in my life.
Beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here. It has been amazing. I think this will be a really valuable episode for so many parents out there, and just anyone wanting to gauge some of the relationships that are in their lives. You don't have to be a parent, but I do think trust is one of those things that we sometimes overlook. It's one of the easiest things to break and one of the hardest things to rebuild. And the fact is, we've probably broken trust with people in our lives, and we probably have some deep, deep trust with others. And it is what it is, whatever the situation is. However, when we start taking ownership over our part and we give others the opportunity to take ownership over their part, if we choose, it can really have a constructive outcome for everyone. So hope this conversation on trust has been valuable to you. We would love to hear what comments you have, what feedback you have, and what thoughts you've got in the comments below this recording, whatever platform you're watching on, because I think this will be a really juicy conversation. I think we've all got our own experiences with this. And if you are interested in connecting with Rosalie, go check out her LinkedIn. If you know anyone, go ahead and refer her, because she is phenomenal. So that's it. I'll see you guys again next week. Bye for now.